Credibility is everything when it comes to true crime cases. How credible or trustworthy someone's words are is the difference between a guilty or not guilty verdict, between a person walking out of a courthouse a free man or woman, or being sent to prison for the rest of their lives. What makes a person credible is hard to define, as it tends to be different from person to person. Say, for instance, you're on the jury. The defendant in the case is an aggressive young man who has a history of violent outbursts. He grew up in an unstable and possibly abusive home, surrounded by drugs and alcohol. He dropped out of school at his first opportunity, taking issue with authority and feeling as if his academic career wouldn't amount to much in the long run. In the police interrogation video, he was standoffish and smug, purposely pushing the officer's buttons, then asking for a lawyer after riling the interviewer up. He's now on trial for a non-violent crime, one of which he claims he didn't commit. There's no direct evidence against him, just another witness's testimony. But based solely on what we've told you thus far, if you were a jury member, would you believe that he was involved? Would you be able to trust his word based entirely on his behavior and his character that the prosecution would depict? Now, say the defendant was a young woman, a woman who came from a middle-class background and worked as a teacher. She often volunteers to help troubled youths, and she's a young mother. She is stable, she's dependable, and from what all of the character witnesses have said, a very kind individual. In her video, she makes herself small, crying and repeating that she is innocent of any wrongdoing. She is polite to the officers when asking for a lawyer, making sure that she isn't wrongfully penalized. Most people would choose to put their trust in the second defendant, based entirely on their own biases. The evidence against both people are the same, but chances are that one would be found guilty over the other, based entirely on credibility alone. And that is exactly what today's suspect was banking on when she attempted to groom a child in juvenile detention to murder her ex-husband using sex. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we're going to be covering the recent case of Elena Bardin, and how this teacher seemed to target a troubled teen in order to groom him to kill her husband for her. This case was sent to us by multiple subscribers and patrons, as they noted the similarities between Bardin and Pamela Smart, who we covered on the channel last year. As always, if there's a case you would like to see on the channel or a story you want to bring more attention to, you can let me know by emailing me at dreading.official@gmail.com. We're still consistently going through our mail and adding your suggestions to our list, so we can begin our research process. But be aware, we are just two people, meaning that it will take us some time. With all of that said though, let us begin. Elena Bardin was a 27-year-old mother and wife, working as a teacher at a juvenile detention facility. Elena would often post about her work, how the miscreants, ruffians, and Johnny-come-latelys deserved to have an education and deserved to get a second chance in the world. Her statements, as well as her position, were honorable, but her reason for taking the job was likely not as admirable as she wanted people to believe. Despite her posts on TikTok, Facebook, and other social media platforms showcasing her perfect life, Bardin had become dissatisfied with her own circumstances. She felt that her relationship with her husband had grown stale, and that she deserved a more passionate romance, but was ultimately stuck in the relationship because of their 5-year-old daughter. If she wanted to leave him, that meant at least 13 more years of constant interaction and communication, shared custody, and the loss of his portion of their shared income. The idea of having split custody of their daughter seemed to bother her, as did the thought of hiring an expensive divorce attorney and going through the rigmarole of court proceedings. She just wanted the marriage to be over, but she didn't want anything in her life to actually change. And while Elena was contemplating how she was going to end her marriage, she began to interact with one of her juvenile students. The identity of this minor has not been made public, fortunately, as he is the victim in this circumstance. But what is known is that he was incarcerated for a serious offense related to murder. In other cases of teachers preying upon their students, it's clear that they wield a fair amount of authority in their victims' lives. Outside of the minor's parents and guardians, they are likely the adult that the child spends the most time with, and one of the most trusted people in their lives. The teacher has the power to affect the child's life in the classroom, as well as outside by controlling their grades, which usually result in some kind of punishment by their parents. In the case of Brittany Zamora, she would routinely change her victims' grades in order to help or hurt them, depending upon what she wanted. This power that the teacher wields over the minors' lives has been shown to children and teens to feel as if they have to comply with their teacher's sexual requests, even when they would have said no otherwise. But that is the case for a teacher working at a normal school. Bardin worked at a detention facility, one where every second of the minor's day had to be scheduled and accounted for. He had no extracurricular activities. He was isolated from the world at large, and so Bardin was one of the main authorities in his life. This boy had no choice other than to deal with her, and if he was to come forward and tell any other authority figure at the prison what was being done to him, who would they probably believe? The minor with a criminal record or the teacher who had a family that she wanted to support? For the vast majority of the victims of this kind of predator, it's their first experience with sex or romantic relationships in general. They're in an extremely vulnerable position, as these experiences do lay the groundwork for what they believe a romantic relationship looks like, and to have it be tarnished and manipulated by an adult who is directly attempting to control them has long-standing consequences that most people don't understand. According to letters Bardin would send to this minor, she was immediately attracted to him, and felt as if they were meant to be in each other's lives. She quickly began to groom the minor, breaking small but notable rules in the detention facility in order to spend more time with him. Others working alongside Bardin noticed a change in her behavior, but she brushed off any of their concerns, stating that she just needed to spend more time with the young man in order to further his education. She was a good person after all, with a husband she loved and a daughter she would do anything for. The very implication that she could be doing something wrong with this teenager was insulting. This kind of action is something we have seen a lot with sexual predators, specifically with preferential predators. The number one priority in their life is getting their sexual needs met, and so they will center their lives around their paraphilia. These are not the kind of people you see in classic online sting operations. Those kinds of predators prey on children because they're unable to find an adult partner, usually because they're unemployed or generally gross to the average adult. Meanwhile, offenders like Elena, Patrick Giovandito, and Pamela Smart purposely chose jobs that put them in direct contact with children. Their dedication to their jobs is seen as a sign of good moral character. Similarly, they go through great pains to appear normal and happy with their lives. In Elena's case, she posted photos with her family constantly on social media, portraying a happy wife and mother. She used her family as a facade, making it harder for any person to believe that she could possibly be a predator. But she would quickly begin sexually exploiting the minor. At some point, other staff members began to feel as if Bardin was crossing further boundaries, and she'd been fully advised to cease contact with the boy. Elena's supervisor would go further, going so far as to transfer the boy into another unit at the facility to keep her away from him. However, she refused to cut off contact. It would seem that she believed that there was some kind of real relationship with the boy that she had explicit authority and control over, and would continue to try and engage with him. On March 27, 2025, the staff at the facility where the minor was located would conduct a routine search of his cell, where they uncovered nearly 200 letters written by the teacher to her student. They also found pictures of the mother that were sexually explicit. The evidence was damning, and immediately police were contacted. When authorities went over the letters, a clear image began to form. It would seem that Bardin was deeply invested in a romantic relationship with this minor, and repeatedly asked the boy to take out her husband so that they could eventually be together. We weren't able to get full access to all of the letters, but the following are portions that have been made public by Court TV, Union Bulletin, and PeopleMagazine.com. In one of the letters, Bardin would go into detail about how she had gone into his cell and had sex with the boy, both orally and vaginally. She ended the letter by writing, "I hope you enjoyed that, I did." Again, it's notable that he had no control or ability to consent in that situation. Not only is he a minor, but she did have direct authority over him. There have been similar cases in female prisons, where a guard will use their power over the inmates for their own sexual benefit. And while they will claim that the inmate was a willing participant, the direct control and authority they have over their lives makes that impossible. Following that, she wrote another letter, which stated, quote, "Okay, call me effed up, but if you want, I thought you were talking about putting a hit on my husband. I can't give you my ring. I gotta make it look like and make him feel like we're good, but I won't wear it around you. Don't be mad at me. That makes me sad," unquote. There's a few notable things that we can take away from this small snippet. Firstly, she brings up the potential hit in an extremely underhanded way. She tries to present the concept as if it was the teen's idea. It's not that she wants her husband dead, even though his death would really only benefit her, but she brings it up by saying the boy introduced the idea, and she just is responding to it. Elena also doesn't tell the boy, "No, don't kill my husband," or try and discourage that line of thinking in any real way. Instead, she tells him that she has to continue to make her husband think that they are in a good place, relationship-wise, even though they aren't. Essentially, she is saying that it's important for no one to suspect that she's unhappy in the relationship, which a reasonable person could infer to mean that she needs to look like a good and doting wife to avoid suspicion if her husband were to be murdered. In a separate letter, she would write, quote, "This was honestly the most time I spent with my husband in a long time. We had a good day, but it really solidified for me why the two of us just don't work. I just really effing missed you all damn day," unquote. Here, Elena repeatedly brings up her relationship with her husband, which is an odd thing to do. It's like she's using the minor as a sounding board for her relationship, all the while sexually exploiting him. But more importantly, she's directly pitting the minor against her husband. In a normal, non-predatory relationship, talking to your partner about an ex consistently would be strange, as it would evoke feelings of jealousy. In a previous letter, Elena seemed to call out the minor's jealousy about her relationship with her husband, and yet she brings him up in this way. It's possible that she might enjoy making the teen feel jealous, as it could be seen as affirming to her. It's also likely that she wants to continue to stoke any negative feelings the teen may have towards her husband, so he may actually be driven to murder him. She then wrote, quote, "You know, my child is my #1 priority, but the way you love and talk about redacted makes me no doubt that you're an amazing father." I think she meant not. I don't think I have to go into the sex part because you and I both know that is the cherry on top, unquote. Bardin is now trying to position this teenager as being the future father figure towards her 5-year-old child. She wants him to view her daughter as his, and again, put him in direct opposition to her husband. On a separate note, her child is obviously not her #1 priority. If that were truly the case, she would not have begun to sexually abuse a minor, which would obviously put her at risk of seeing her daughter at all. But she would also not have wanted to make a troubled teen her child's legal guardian. Shortly thereafter, in a letter again discussing the potential murder of her husband, she wrote, "I know you say that you'll take care of him, but shouldn't someone else do it so suspicion is miles away from you? IDK, I'm going to miss you so redacted bad tonight. You look so handsome today, love, I love you." Unquote. So she's directly talking about the murder of her husband at the hands of her teenage victim, and plotting on how they could both get away with the crime. In our opinion, there is no other way this passage can be interpreted in good faith. There are other passages that were apparently read in court, but at the time of recording, the letters have not been made public. Nearly a week after the letters were found, Bardin would be arrested at her home. The following is the arrest footage, as made public by Law and Crime. A link to the footage sans our commentary will be left in the description box down below.
So you're going to call him and tell him that I've been arrested?
I'll let him know that you've been arrested.
Sure.
And then obviously you need to reach out to him from the jail, okay?
Okay.
And then just, again, he knows me, I know him.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Will
just
his
tell
number be there? Because y'all don't have it. Like I have a card in my car.
Okay, I'll get it. I promise you. Where's it?
I just like right next to my phone.
Just kidding.
Okay. I don't want that.
As seen, Bardin is extremely calm when talking to the police, almost as if she knew something like this would happen. That's likely because she did. Elena is an intelligent person. Absolutely nothing she has done in this case has been accidental, down to the person she chose to target, meaning that she always considered the teen coming forward against her as a possibility. At the time of her arrest, she is not aware of the evidence against her and is likely maintaining her calm because she believes that there is a way forward out of this that doesn't end with a jail sentence. All she has to do is maintain her innocence, state that the boy is lying about her, and she'll be able to walk away scot-free because police will probably believe her.
Is this okay? She asked for her 5/8.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, your mom's got. Hey, your mom's good with taking the car, right? Your parents are good with taking the car, right?
That's taking the car?
Yeah, when we're done with it, we're going to turn it over to you guys. We just want to make sure you got a driver and everything else.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can put those up.
So we're done with this? I
Yep.
can put it back in my car?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have anything on you, your drawing, or anything?
No. I just got my attorney's card in my pocket.
I'll be here. We're just going to get this one right here.
Following her arrest, Bardin would be charged with solicitation of murder, sexual abuse in the first degree, and distribution of obscene material to a minor. Her husband would immediately file for divorce and get a restraining order against her, as she attempted to put a hit out on him. She would plead not guilty to the charges, with her lawyer arguing that the teenage boy had been the one to groom her. They alleged that she'd been genuinely invested in helping the boy, but he had manipulated her to do his sexual bidding. If anything, she was the real victim. Again, Elena was attempting to cash in on her front-facing persona. She wasn't a pedophile. She was a good person, one who sought to make the world a better place, and she'd been corrupted by this minor with a criminal past. He was just a bad kid who came from a bad home, essentially putting forward the notion that he couldn't have been victimized because of that alone, and that she, the 27-year-old mother who had complete control over his life, shouldn't be punished because she'd been corrupted by him. During the trial, the minor would take the stand, where he stated that he didn't view the relationship as anything more than something to do while incarcerated, and that it meant more to Elena than it did to him. When asked if he had considered killing her husband, he said no, but went on to say that she brought the subject up multiple times and seemed very serious. It was his belief that she wanted to murder her husband, but he didn't want to do it. After a 2-day trial, she was found guilty of sexual abuse, unlawful transaction with a minor, and distribution of obscene material to a minor, but the jury ultimately found her not guilty on the solicitation charge, finding that there was reasonable doubt that she was trying to have a teen boy kill her husband. Her lawyers argued that every time the subject was broached in the letters, she had just been kidding and never explicitly told him to do anything. The following is her sentencing hearing, as made public by Court TV. This footage is incredibly interesting, not because of how Elena acts in this situation, but because of the statement from the judge prior to handing down her sentence.
All right, this is a very unfortunate case, needless to say. Like I said, I was very impressed with the letters involving your parents. Let's start with the motion for a new trial and judgment of acquittal. I'm going to deny those motions. I think this was a clean trial. I really don't see any issues that came up at the trial that I think would be a concern from an appellate standpoint. I think the jury got the verdict right in this particular matter all the way around. You know, and what we do, I've always said, and I believe that the juries get things right more than anybody else in our process. I absolutely believe that. And I think they got it right here. I really don't think you intended to try to solicit that young man to kill your husband. I don't think you did. I think the acquittal on that was the right decision by the jury. It's what I would have done if I had been sitting on the jury, if it had been tried in front of me. I think you were acquitted on various charges that you probably should have been acquitted on. And of course I directed a verdict on 2 of the counts because there wasn't any evidence, I thought, to warrant a conviction. You sent 193 pages of letters, I think it was, to this young man. One of them got you convicted. 1 letter. The one where you basically admitted to the sexual contact with this young man, which of course triggered the other charge in this particular case. That's what got you convicted, and the jury was right to convict you of it. You know, regarding the sentence on this particular matter, there have been situations, I think probably 4 times, when I've had trials and I have reduced the sentence that a jury recommended because I just thought it was very unreasonable what they had offered or what they had recommended the jury. I think I've done that 4 times in the many trials I've had. And I've considered that in your case. The thing that about this, Miss Bardin, it's not necessarily in my mind what I would have done if I'd been sitting on the jury. I don't think I would have done 14 had I been a juror, because you're going to pull right under 12 of that. These are 85% pro eligibility. The question that for me is that whether or not I think their recommendation was unreasonable to the point where I'm not going to follow it. Couple concerns I have about the case and about your conduct in this case. First of all, you were an educator, okay? You were an educator of these kids. I mean, these are troubled kids. That's why they're there. I mean, you're there to set a better example. And the letters you sent, which, I mean, they were juicy. I mean, they were things you'd see in a XXX movie. Completely inappropriate, obviously, and I think you know that for a young man of that age. And as an educator, it was incumbent upon you to set a better example. My biggest concern is the fact, though, Ms. Bardin, is that you were counseled to stop this, okay? We heard testimony from your supervisor, basically the supervising educator at the facility when you taught there, Brad Stevens. He pulled you into his office and said, "Hey, we're getting complaints. You're around this kid too much. You need to distance yourself from him. This is not a good look. You're going to get yourself in a spot here." I think that another witness, Jessica Black, testified that they actually moved this young man to another part of the building, another pod, so to speak, to try to get him away from you. And ma'am, not only did you not heed that advice and stop, it looks like to me you actually even doubled down on the behavior after that. And that's concerning. That's concerning. I know a lot of people in your letter talk about your mental health issues, that you've had issues with being bipolar, and I don't doubt any of that. I will say though, the 193 pages of letters, pictures, everything else, I mean, it depicts a very intelligent and articulate young woman who was clearly articulating her thoughts and desires to this kid. I don't doubt you have some issues, but it's just those issues aren't enough for me to not follow the jury recommendation in this particular case. I just don't find, even though it might not have been what I would have done if I were sitting on the jury, it probably would not have been. I don't find it an unreasonable recommendation, and so I'm going to follow it. So on the charge of sexual abuse, first degree, I'm going to impose a sentence of 4 years. On the charge of unlawful transaction with a minor, illegal sex act, child under the age of 18, I'm going to impose a sentence of 10 years. Pursuant to the jury's recommendation, I'm going to run those sentences consecutive for a total of 14 years. I'm also going to sign an order requiring you to register as a sex offender as required by law for 20 years. I'm signing the interpersonal protective order that would prohibit you from having contact with this young man. I think that is for a period of 3 years, I think, but
Should be 10, I believe.
10 years, I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't really see that as being an issue, but you are under a court order to have no contact with him for that period of time. And obviously, I'm going to waive your fines and costs on this particular case based upon the sentence. Ma'am, I wish you the best. I truly do. Upon your release, it's going to be a while, but in the big scheme of things, when you are released, you're going to be a relatively young woman. You are. You'll have the rest of your life to live and spend time with your family and children. And I wish you well upon your release.
There's a general sense of understanding from the judge towards Elena, which ventures on feeling inappropriate. He compliments her intelligence in the letters that her parents wrote on her behalf, and says that she obviously knew her actions were wrong, but he doesn't seem to feel like there was any malice behind what she had done. Elena's entire defense relied on the jury believing that the 17-year-old had groomed her, that she was the ultimate victim in this situation, and that she had no power over what occurred. She was well aware that if he were to come forward about what she had done, she could simply point to his own criminal history and make false claims against him, and the only reason she was caught was because there was direct physical evidence against her. That's why she chose to exploit him. If he didn't do and act the exact way she wanted him to, she could destroy his life and no one would care, because they had already labeled him as a criminal. That is malice and it is calculated, but the judge seems to hand-wave that notion away because she's intelligent and comes from a good home. Imagine the same scenario with the genders flipped. If Elena was a male educator working at a juvenile detention facility and was shown to have sexually exploited one of his students in the same way, would anyone feel as if he hadn't acted with malice? That he'd just been corrupted by one of the inmates, who all but forced him into the predatory relationship? No, obviously not. The judge then comforts her by saying that after her sentence is through, she'll have a long life ahead of her, and that she'll finally be able to make something of herself. Which is true, but again, feels inappropriate. Elena was then sentenced to consecutive terms of 10 years for unlawful transaction with a minor and 4 years for sexual abuse. She also received a 12-month sentence for a distribution charge to be served concurrently, and then was ordered to register as a sex offender for 20 years. So hopefully we never hear from her again. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by leaving a like or a comment down below. Assuming this video goes out when it's scheduled, then I hope you're having a safe and happy holiday season. We will be uploading twice a week leading up to our Dreadmas celebration, where we upload every day the last week of the month. We've been trying to backlog our videos for some time to prepare, but we still have some work to do, as that is a lot of content. But with all of that said, if there's a video you would like to see on the channel or a story you want to bring more attention to, you can let me know by emailing me at dreading.official@gmail.com. Again, we're still consistently going through the email and adding your suggestions to the list, and of course beginning our research process. So with all of that said, have a great day and remember, stay jolly.